All right, what's up, my world builders? So, in the last video, we talked about how to get started, and I told y'all next time we will talk about how to create your timeline from scratch. So, a couple things we want to think about is cultures, races or ethnicities, different nationalities, your countries and your borders, and that's all going to take us to religion. And once you get your religion and you take all that, you match it together, you should have a pretty solid timeline. Now, let's start with culture. Now, let's start with countries and borders. This is a step not taken serious enough, but can be a huge tool for crafting your history. So, let's say you have your map. Whether you hand drew it or you use AI, random generator, or my new favorite, the hex flower system. Look into it, it's pretty good. I might do a video in the future on that. Take a look at the areas where rivers are, banks and gulfs form, and areas where high amounts of valued elements and valued goods would be. These are the hotspots for civilizations to begin and build. And most of the time, the first major successful establishments turn into towns, cities, and then later capitals, as expansion is typically down or done around the beginning of those civilizations. They just kind of expand from there. Now, mountains will help create borders and be the cause of geographical and political issues or advantages. You can segue that straight into traditions and cultures if you want. Now, this is just kind of my order of things. I think these are definitely the important things you need to think of, but you can put it in your own order. Now, if you let that segue you into cultures, think about the traditions of a people or a nation as a whole and how it affects their everyday notions. Think about year-round traditions and what's affected, like holidays and biological beliefs. During this process, you will want to brainstorm some cool epic moments and sung heroes, the moments and stories that would be legendary. The moments and stories that will be legendary and told to everyone. Maybe you can use these moments to play around with character ideas in your head and let the stories unfold itself. A couple good ones to do would be maybe an emancipation of suppressed people or an individual, the rise or fall of a kingdom or a couple of them. Taking it all back to culture, once you have a few ideas of things that you want embedded in your cultures, think about the first times those practices were put into use and why. Think on the reason for it and even the lies or misinterpretations from generations and generations down the road, losing connection with ancient traditions that you first thought of. As you write these ideas down, you start to see your timeline unfold. While you're at it, take those bad ideas, the ones that you don't like and are actively thinking, why did I even put that? Make those into myths or folktale. Now you're compounding on culture and lore for a people. Then you just rinse and repeat to several, if not all, of your core countries and races. This can also take you directly into races and ethnicities if you haven't already tackled it. But use the history of the first people in towns, remember going back to the map, to help guide your ideas for family lineages, which leads into different family names, empires, and nationalities. Any mega family legacies or powerful family trees, insert them here. This is where you put the Skywalker family. Insert them here and build out your timeline a little more. Now let's tie it all together with the big one, religion. You may think it's a small part, but for fantasy, it's definitely a huge piece of the puzzle. Creating links to culture, borders, and possible mega infrastructures, as well as, you guessed it, wars. This will help your timeline in almost every way. Was your world created by God, or is it science-based? If it is, keep in mind that science can really be considered religious in many ways, and depends on how you look at it. Looking at it through that view can help you even if your story is rooted into science. If you're doing a sci-fi epic, religion helps your audience or players have a lens to look through, whether positively or negatively. If you have a magic or power system, now is the time to give it an origin. Maybe God blessed people with abilities. Maybe it's a multi-god system and each is connected to its own power. Or maybe it's all scientific and cosmic storms gave your characters abilities, like the Fantastic Four. Either way, now you have ample of story fodder to apply how you see fit. Again, things that you later don't like, don't toss them. Use them for false religions and myths or misinterpretations. It's perfect to help your world truly feel alive. To end this with an example from my last scenario, and again, my scenarios are basically they're role-playing games that I do with friends. I ran a world that I created from scratch. Now, what I did for Borders, I made a map. I looked into how civilizations were built, and I planned my geographical locations accordingly. And that's when I learned about how, the cities are expanded from their first point of origin, kind of in circles and layers. I took that into cultures that helped me, divide how people would adapt to their surroundings. For a good example is I came up with a race centered around humanoid-like beings and dinosaurs that were the wildlife. And they were so prevalent that they had to stop the war that they were doing, and they had to take control of the wildlife around them. They had to take control of the dinosaurs. They worked the creatures into their war and agriculture and construction and just everyday living. They began to have a respect for the wildlife and made sure that they were not hunted out of into extinction. Whereas their enemy from that war grew a hatred toward dinosaurs and wildlife and would kill any that they saw and or trap them and sold them to underground markets. That was my cultures. And from there, other nations, I was able to kind of, do different things, right? Now, races. Took me right into different races and nations around the world, past the two from that war that I just mentioned. I quickly had neighboring kingdoms and decided which were the same humanoid-like creatures and which ones were newer or sacred creatures. I decided what fantasy trope races I wanted and took my own spin on them, turning elves into angels or fallen angels, and then taking inspiration from scripture and pulling out giants as hybrids of humans and angels, but took it further and expanded on the lore in my own way for my brand new world. I had ideas of angels coming from other planets and affecting the DNA balance of this planet after mingling. This all being huge pieces to the timeline puzzle that I was forming, Now, introducing the first races and the later generations and hybrid races to come and what dates they came into play also it was the perfect soup to help form what I needed, which is my timeline. And that also helped me go into religion. Because if I'm talking about when angels are coming down and all these cosmic beings, well, let's see. I decided while I was at it to continue pulling influence from the Bible and mixing it with my own space adventure. I figured the fallen angels would want to be respected. So I took that race and thought of how they would create kind of their own religion, something that worshiped them. Then I thought of the correct religion for this world. And then I chose races that would actually follow the correct religion. After that, I could see more dates filling out my timelines as major spiritual and cosmic events that I came up with to expand the lore became pivotal moments in this world, shaping nations, wars, borders, and cultures all in one. Now, it may look different for you, and you may have to swap around the order, like I said, but essentially, if you slow down, break down the bare basics, creating the skeleton for your world, you can watch the rest of the pieces fall into place with ease as your brain can sort out everything and chain its ideas to each other much easier. Well, stay blessed, and let's continue to build worlds together. Thank you all again for visiting, and thank you for staying tuned.